You're listening to the Spaceship Earth with me, Dan Burgess. Welcome to episode 4. Which should be episode 4 if I get episode 3 out on time. Episode 3 is done, just so I've got to edit it up. So this is episode 4, and it's called Into the Woods. Into the Woods Part 1, actually, I think, because there might well be a Part 2. There could even be a Part 3, but there's definitely a Part 1, so this is Part 1. It's called Into the Woods because I'm actually in the woods right now. So recording live from the woods, which feels good. And it's a bit of an experiment, I guess, because so I've put 3 of these Spaceship Earth podcasts out, and I've had a bit of feedback from people. Had some nice DMs on Instagram and a bit of love on Twitter. Not that I'm looking for that, but it's always nice to have. That it's good. It's good to hear that people are enjoying some of these conversations. So yeah, the plan was to interview people. People that I think are doing amazing work, awesome work. Who are sort of looking at our planet as this great big, incredible living thing, and wanting to kind of do work that kind of reminds us or excites us of that, or helps restore all the good stuff that it does as it generates life for us. So that was the plan, and that still is the plan. I'm still going to be interviewing people. That's not going to stop. But I kind of thought I've got stuff that I want to talk about as well. And sort of I think to myself, well, that's kind of, that's if you're going to do a podcast, you may as well talk about some of the stuff that you want to talk about, even if no one else listens. It feels good to talk about some things. So that's what I'm planning to do with this experiment, Into the Woods. I'm going to talk about some things that are on my mind that are part of this Spaceship Earth story, I think. And so why come to the woods? Well, the woods for me are a very important place. They're a very important place and they feature quite heavily in my life and have done for many years. And I want to talk a bit about that and why I feel woods, trees, more wild places, even though obviously they're not that wild, because I can hear the road over there, and it's probably people walking their dogs and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, places I guess that are a little bit more untouched, or have been less fiddled and meddled with by the human, are important places for me. The sea is also one of those, but I'm landlocked in Bath, so I don't get to the ocean as much as I would love to. I try as much as I can, but the woods are always there, and I think trees generally, they're around us. Green life we can find quite easily if we look out for it. So yeah, I come to the woods a lot and have done for some time now, and the woods or trees are places for me where I can get quite grounded again. Particularly if I've been tearing around quite a lot, which is what I do quite a lot in my day-to-day. And I can come into the woods and I can sit, which is what I'm doing now, sitting on a dead tree. Although it's dead, it's actually still, it might well be alive. It's kind of it's kind of come down, so it's horizontal, but it's there's still all kinds of stuff growing on it, and shoots growing, and moss, and all kinds of other things, and other bits of life that are clearly living quite well from this tree. I'm sitting on this tree, and this is what I do. I come in often. Usually, I try and come in the mornings, and I walk around, and then I'll just try and sit still for a while, just check in, and try and sort of cut through the kind of human noises and chatter. Some of that's in my head, some of it's around, and I find that deeply grounding. I find that there's a stillness here, and if you worked in conservation, you'll know there's a practice it's called the sit spot, which is basically the idea that you choose a spot somewhere where there's kind of more of nature, not just humans. But it could be in a garden, could be in a park. If you can, I'd recommend going into some kind of woodland or something, because it's just much more epic. But anywhere kind of will work. And you just sit and just be still and try and sort of open up your senses. Try and let the monkey chatter disappear, and just try and be open to other senses and other feelings. And you will begin to notice all kinds of things: sensations, sounds, smells, sights, things that you just maybe can't see at first. But if you practice, it's another practice. If you sit regularly, you will realise there's all kinds of life happening around us. Some of it's tiny, we can't see it. Some of it is very evident. And you'll connect with a place, and you'll start to see how that place is shifting and changing, and all the time. It's alive. It's effectively alive, which is a kind of a big part of, I think, what for me, what the Spaceship Earth is all about. It's a living planet. We're living. Life is living. Everything is alive around us. Life is inside us is alive and changing all the time, and so it's kind of helps you connect more that there's a bigger life force happening. Anyway, that's getting a bit more cosmic for a Thursday morning, but so sitting still is great. Grounding. We've got, I don't know, for many of us, myself included, I spend a lot of time in front of a screen, and screens deaden us, actually. There's a lot of work that's been done on this. They deaden a lot of our senses. We're very much only really using maybe sight and sound. So we're deadening off our other senses are really sort of dulled. In fact, Richard Louv, who's written a lot about this, he calls it almost like, it's almost like we're dead. Because we are sort of sentient, sensory creatures, the humans. We're very sensory creatures. That's evolved. As we've evolved through time, we're always using our senses day in, day out, all the time, and actually over the, actually a relatively short space of time. As we've sort of gone through industrial revolutions into this kind of working cultures, quite sedentary now, where a lot of us are sort of inside constructed spaces and sitting in front of screens. That's we're not alive. We're sort of vaguely dead, which isn't great, is it? So anyway, I come to the woods to ground myself again, to sort of wake my other senses up, and to connect with other forms of life beyond the human, which for me is deeply energizing. I feel kind of regenerated. So I'm curious, and I guess I've been also, so I do that as a practice, but I've also in my work been sort of exploring this for quite a few years and trying to sort of hack this into my projects, whether it's when I'm working with other people or working with companies, or trying to bring some of this more life-centered approach into the ways we might work, or the ways we might think about designing things, or organising ourselves in teams, or learning, or just looking after ourselves and our own sort of well-being. And it's been quite hard actually over the years to sort of for that to happen, but it's definitely changing, it's shifting. You can sense that this stuff is becoming more interesting to people, I think, as we realise we're sort of frying our heads in this kind of industrial techno culture. There's definitely more of an appetite, I think, to explore the wider living world and the interconnectedness of all of that. So that's something I'm trying to offer out to the world more. Actually, offer out to people, companies, teams, to come and spend some time doing some things in the woods. Thinking about the problems that we're trying to solve, but getting out of our kind of artificially lit, quite sort of connected, over-connected, stimulated, buzzy environments, and come into an environment like the woods where we can learn a lot by being still and listening, a deeper form of listening and a deeper form of noticing, a sort of bigger awareness. And I worked out, actually, this is what I used to do a lot as a kid. I sort of worked out that's where, when I was very young, this is actually the woods where I felt most at ease. So I'd often scarper off, and we had some woods behind where I used to live, and when I was younger, and that's where I'd go. And I always remember feeling quite, sort of safe. Not that I didn't feel safe in the house or anything, but I just definitely have always felt a bit of an edge, a bit of an anxiety around the sort of busier, sort of constructed worlds, environments, and more calmness in more natural environments. So the woods have always been there, and I think I kind of lost that understanding of my need for that in my 20s and 30s, early 30s anyway. And I've been rediscovering that over the last decade. And yeah, so anyway, I'm in the woods. This is called Into the Woods, and here I am. And I didn't really have much of a agenda for this, because I thought, well, these other interviews I'm doing, there's a little bit more of a shape to them and sort of the questions and stuff. And then I thought, well, maybe I just these little experiments, these side experiments, may be slightly different. So I've come just to sort of sit here and be, and then just talk a little bit about why I come to this place. It's kind of interesting, because when I don't know if you've ever come across a theory, it's called Gaia theory, and I was first introduced to Gaia theory in when was it? It was when I was doing my masters in 2010, I think 2009, by a very amazing gentleman called Stephen Harding, who's written a lot about what he would call the animate world, the fact that the world is alive. It's not just humans; everything is living, everything is sentient, and he's built on the Gaia theory work, and my brain's gone. I can't even remember the original champion and author behind Gaia theory, James Lovelock. Anyway, so yeah, Stephen Harding, he writes a lot about the animate earth. And I spent a week with him in when it was 2009, 2010, exploring Gaia theory, which is basically, I'm doing this a major disservice, but it's effectively a sort of idea that, the Earth is a kind of living organism, and everything is interconnected, and all kinds of creatures and organisms and are interacting with each other and actually co-creating the conditions for life, the conditions that allow us as humans to live, to breathe, to exist. And so it's this very, very beautiful, almost kind of miraculous kind of set of circumstances and interactions that are creating these kind of conditions for life to exist. And so as we start to meddle with the planet through our industrial ways of living and being and working, we're upsetting those interactions between different parts of this complex and extraordinary system that creates conditions for life for all of us to live. And so when I first got introduced to that, it completely blew my head off. In fact, it's probably one of the pinpoints of the shift in my own sense of being and what the hell I was doing in the world, and what do I do with my work and with my time here. Was getting my head into Gaia theory. I've sort of forgotten why I was going down this route with Stephen Harding. Yeah, but anyway, so he used to say, so we'd be sitting in this room down at Schumacher College in Devon, which is an extraordinary place, who do amazing courses of all kinds of things, like weekends and weeks and all kinds of short courses, which I thoroughly recommend to anyone who's asking some bigger questions about what the F is going on right now. Go and do some learning with some different ways of thinking and looking and being in the world. There's some really good stuff. There's some amazing stuff going on down there. Anyway, he used to say we'd be sitting in this room at the college, and he'd be talking about God, and he'd go, let's go inside. And you go, well, we're inside. And he'd go, let's go inside, and he'd be pointing towards the door to go out, and he's going, yeah, that's inside. Let's go into the world. He said, right here in this classroom, we're outside of this great being, this Earth. The Earth is in there, and there's a simple idea. He used to say, when you're sort of in a plane, you're outside. You're not in the world. You're outside. You're kind of like looking into this thing, and so we spend a lot of our time sort of outside of really the kind of living world, and that stuck with me. So anyway, what's that got to do with right now? Well, I guess we're in the woods, right? So we're in the living Earth. We're part of it, and spending time, I think, is hugely beneficial to balance. I'm not sort of advocating we kind of all go and move to the woods, because that'd be hellish as well. But I guess what I'm talking about is balance, and I'm sort of imagining, I was. I just was back from London last night, and I've been doing a bit of work with a couple of quite big businesses at the moment, and I'm always struck, and as you sort of whittle around these these big buildings, and passes and meeting rooms and bookings and coffee machines and drinks machines and this and that, and everyone rushing around, busy, and you sit in these meetings and no one really feels like they can make a decision because they've got too many decisions they're trying to make in a very short space of time. And I've kind of been watching this probably for a decade, or for at least feeling these feelings and watching these things and not really saying that much about it, getting quite angry actually at times. I don't get as angry now about it. I've sort of managed to sort of break through that. But it does strike me again, like, a balance. Why do we feel it's so hard? Oh, did you hear that? That was a woodpecker. I don't know if you got that. To get out of these spaces. Why is it so hard to sort of find some balance and say, I don't know, maybe one day a week or one afternoon or one morning? You must have heard that. It's the green woodpecker. It sounds a bit like the Joker in Batman. Yeah, so what was I talking about? Getting out. Yeah, so getting out. Why don't we do that? Why don't we program more time outside as part of the way that we do our work? Like, it could just be one morning where, like, it's 2 hours and it's in the park or in the woods, or a team does this, and it's build it as a regular practice. And I'm absolutely convinced. In fact, I'm willing to say that if someone wants to pay me to design this practice for their team, if it doesn't work within 1 month of doing it, you can have the money back. All right? If there's not benefits, there you go. It's a simple practice, and it can be designed into where you work. It doesn't have to be, oh shit, we've got to get on a bus and go to the fucking countryside. Sorry, I shouldn't have sworn. It can just, there's parks, there's spaces everywhere where we can get out and we can do things that allow us to widen our lens on what the hell is going on, and think, well, what's our role here, and how are we doing this, and how could we maybe do our things slightly differently, or maybe, and the other thing is creativity. The woods will, you spend a bit of time in natural environments and you start to build a practice, and I'm telling you, your creativity will increase. Your sense of well-being will increase. Your sense of empathy will increase. All kinds of stuff. So anyway, that was a little sales pitch there. Just came out, just emerged into the woods. But it really struck me again, just how everyone's just burning. Well, not everyone, but I'm sure that my experience this week is being replicated in many places. There's a burnout. There's not fantastic decisions being made. There's not that much creativity, and it doesn't look that much that people are having fun either, which feels such a shame, because we only live for such a short space of time. We should be just like trying to inject that kind of awesome wonder into what we're doing. Into the woods. I'm actually sitting. I was just trying to work out what tree I was sitting on. It's an ash. There's quite a lot of ash here. Which is, I think, the sort of tree of life known as ash. There's also some oak here and lots of beech. If you do go to the woods, you should never sleep under a beech tree. The beech tree was known many years ago as the widower's tree. Yeah, because beeches, they shed their boughs. Like, you can, if you look up an old beech, you'll often see like kind of big scars where large branch boughs have broken off and fallen. That's what they do. They just do that. So if you're going to spend a night in the woods, which I also recommend you should do at some point, because it's a fantastic thing to just go and sleep in the woods for a night. Don't sleep under the beech, because you don't want to be. What would happen? Sorry, the widower thing. So you'd have people years ago when we were spending a lot more time in the woods and going out and probably working in them and all sorts. A lot of people used to spend time and sleep and stuff in the woods. So if you're sleeping under a beech, and the beech could quite often drop a bloody great bough branch, which would just, you'd be gone. So it was known as the widower's tree. So there's a few of them. I'm just working. I'm still recording. These are the things you have to sort of slightly panic about when you're doing these kind of podcasts. Am I recording? Is it still working? Anyway, it is. Okay, so the other thing about the woods is health and well-being. So, there is, again, lots and lots of work that's been done on this in the past about the health and well-being benefits of being more closely connected to the more natural world around us. And there's all kinds of brilliant things that I guess will be going on inside my body right now because I'm sitting in the woods. And as I'm sitting in the woods, the sun is just breaking through the trees, and it's beautiful. The wild garlic's starting to come through. So there's kind of this green, sort of bright green carpet. And it's making me feel good. And there's there's actually, the scientists who look at this stuff will tell you there's great things going on inside my body right now. Stress levels will be dropping, and all kinds of reactions. And again, this has come because, again, we've spent thousands and thousands of years evolving close to the natural world, and that's probably, we evolved in harmony with that. There was a symbiotic relationship between us. It made us feel good, and I would say we've been sort of quite violently removed from that relationship. So there's huge benefits for your health by spending more time outside. In more natural environments, and so that's another reason why it's good to go into the woods. Yes. So this was a thought. This was a little experiment. I hope people are enjoying this little session from the woods. But the balancing, so part of what I'm trying to do, and I've been trying to do for many years and failed at it quite a lot, but I'm back onto it now, is building this practice, regular practice of time in natural spaces. That's just to be still and to do nothing. And sometimes you think, oh God, am I wasting my time? The time's going and I'm sitting in a wood on my own. Isn't that a bit wolf? But actually, this is generative time. This is generating. This is going to gives me extraordinary inputs, I guess, that then allow me to be a less of a pain up the arse with the people who are close to me and around me. My family, my lovely wife and my children, and then my work partners and team and all the people I spend time with. So if I'm not dosing myself up with hits of the natural world, then I'm not fully I'm anywhere near kind of where I can be, and not optimizing how I can show up. So that's another reason. But also, just how beautiful would it be, I think, if that was a practice that we did. It was just like, imagine like you went to work and it was like, oh, it's Woods Day today on Wednesday, so we do our first 2 hours in the woods, or by a river, or if we work by the coast, on the beach, or whatever it is. For me, like that could be so transformational, because it's not just all the benefits I've talked about. There's also the connection point. We start to connect. You start to connect with this wider circle of life, because you start to realise, you start to notice things. You start to go, wow, I didn't realise that, or I didn't see that, or look at how that tree works with that, or look at that plant over there, or wow, if I can sit here in stillness, I can actually see the breeze coming through, and I can start to see how the wind is moving certain things, and certain things over there look like they're growing, and certain things over there didn't look like they're not, and look, there's sunlight coming through there, and there's not there, and I can start to understand how, certain areas need energy, and life needs energy, and all these great things that you just start to work out. And you can take that back into your life. And anyway, I think that would be awesome. So that's a little bit about what this experiment is about. And I hope there's something in here maybe that connects with someone. And if anyone wants to talk about any of these things, please reach out. You can get me at Dan Solo on Twitter, or at Dan Solos on Instagram, or Dan at danburgess.earth. Hit me up. I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, ideas, or anything on any of this stuff. Or if there's anything I've said which you think that's interesting, I'd like to know more, please do. Oh, the woodpecker. You can hear that. The woodpecker has literally just flown right above me now, and it's not a green woodpecker. It's either a lesser spotted or a greater spotted. I'm not quite sure. I can't remember the difference. They have a black back and a white, and then a white sort of neck, head, and they have a red blob on the back of the head as well. Anyway, it's gone. But that's what I mean. If you also sit still, you will see things that you'll go, wow, I had no idea. And how epic was that? So there you go, that was woodpecker. You have to trust me that it was right there in front of me. My voice felt like it went a bit more, went almost a bit Dave Attenborough in the woods style, because I had to drop the volume. Okay, yeah, cool. And then actually the last thing that's just I was going to say, so I woke up this morning to a bunch of I've been following my other podcasts talking a lot about ocean plastics and to people working with ocean plastics, and I'm actually doing a lot of work at the moment around ocean plastics and stuff. But I looked at my feeds this morning, and there's all this stuff this morning around this research that's been published it's a cool little company that I discovered called Orb Media, who look like they're doing really interesting kind of research methodologies around issues. That I'm going to check them up. But anyway, their work had been published by I think Guardian and a few others, but it was basically I think BBC as well. But it was basically a load of work that's been looking at studying actually branded bottles of plastic water and realising that there is microplastic content in bottled water that we're buying, and that's pretty horrific. And I've been sort of looking at the microplastics thing for some time, and how it's getting into our different, being ingested into various different ecosystems and back into the human sort of system. But actually, I guess this whole piece about buying bottled water that you think is safe, and actually it's been tested and it's carrying lots of plastics within it. And there's a lot of stuff going on about everyone's up in arms, obviously, and there's a lot of talk about this plastic is a design failure, and I get all of that, and I agree with that. But I guess the only thing that makes me sort of feel I have to step back a little bit and think, so much of what we have created as humans in the last, few decades, we will probably class as a design failure at some point in the next few decades. And so plastics is obviously, it's enormous because we've adopted it everywhere. It's so evident now as it's showing up, because the planet cannot carry it anymore. So it's just coming back at us everywhere, in the oceans, in our river systems, through the fish we're now eating, and now obviously in things we're actually buying, and we're like, there's plastic in that. But the thing is it makes me think about, there's a bigger question that I hope is starting to be, well, it is being asked by lots of people, but I think what would be really interesting is if now we can start to sort of really look at bigger questions around how we design generally and how we create and why we create. Because so there's an incredible author called David Orr, who I'm a big fan of, who's been written for years about sort of ecological intelligence, or our lack of it, which is another sort of strand of inquiry of mine I've been trying to explore with folks, is building that ecological intelligence into our culture, but we don't have it really. And he has this great phrase around industrial cleverness, and he says most of what we create these days is down to industrial cleverness. It's like, because we can create and make these things, we make them. Look at air pollution. I mean, you could say air pollution is down to a design failure. It's down to a design failure in terms of exhaust and chucking out fossil fuels and particles and all kinds of crap from our transport systems into the air. You could say that's a design failure. I mean, they're going to come. They're going to come, and they are coming. But I guess it's just sort of, we're looking for these. Plastics is clearly an enormous thing which we've got to get our heads around really fast. But I would also say, oh, can you hear that? There's a woodpecker. Oh, it was a kestrel. It was a kestrel chasing a woodpecker. That is mental. That was the reason that woodpecker was going absolutely bonkers, I don't know if you heard that, was because a kestrel was chasing it. And the woodpecker's gone, but I can see the kestrel now up in a tree just beyond here. See, another reason, go to the woods and it's all going off. You get to see extraordinary, fantastic, wild things happening. Anyway, what was I talking about? Yes, the plastics. So, but I think, there's a bigger thing. There is a bigger thing. The reason these things are happening is because we don't have an interconnected, joined up, systemic view of the world. We don't see these interactions, these interrelationships. We're not taught to understand, to look at the world in that way, to realise that it is interconnected, that there are implications to everything that we do and create. And some of those things also we will not see. We will not see, potentially for quite a few years. So our whole sense of time is, we think very short time, very, very short time thinkers. We don't have any sense of, what a bunch of folks will call deep time thinking. Joanna Macy talks a lot about this, thinking in deep time. Can we think in deeper time? So can we think about, when we're making decisions, can we think about things, the implications of things that might happen way after we're gone? Can we think like that? Can we design like that? Can we start to design things thinking, well, how might this be impactful in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the line? Is that possible for us to move to that kind of world where we are creating and designing and imagining with those kind of design principles, because that's kind of, I think, what the plastics thing is telling us. It's telling us lots of things, but I think, one of those questions when we talk about saying it's a design fault, it is. But I would say how we design generally is at fault. We design in linear ways. We don't design with a system view of the world. We don't understand relationships. This is all about relationships, really. So we're much more fascinated in things and less fascinated in relationships when we're designing between things. So anyway, that was just my thought this morning, which has come to me whilst being in the woods. So that was it. I'm gonna sign up now. I hope that's been enjoyable. This is thank you for listening. This is the Spaceship Earth podcast with me, Dan Burgess, and that was Into the Woods part 1. And have a wonderful day, and until next time, peace and out.